Low mass versus standard mass bolt carrier groups. This week on Mail Call Mondays. Mail Call Mondays is sponsored by Modular Driven Technologies. If you need a chassis system for your precision rifle, check out mdttac.com. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and this Monday our question comes from David, and David asks, pros and cons of low mass versus standard mass bolt carriers and buffer weights in AR-10/SR-25 rifles. Does standard mass really increase reliability and versatility? Also, how does spring weight play in? Well, David, there is really a balancing act between carrier weight, gas system, and recoil spring to try to get everything to work reliably, and there really is not a right or wrong answer in it. First of all, like anything, you have to look at what you intend to do with the rifle. Now, the Mattson 6.5 Creedmoor build that we have sitting in front of me here was designed from the get-go as a competition rifle. I really did not intend this to be any kind of duty or service use, so we can go for that ragged edge of performance and just kind of flirt with the edge of reliability. Now, if we are talking about a duty rifle, like a police sniper rifle or a military service rifle, then reliability has to be your peak concern, and you can sacrifice a little bit of performance to get that peak reliability. So it is a balancing act between the two. Now, when we are talking about a competition rifle like this, one of the things that we really want to do is we want to minimize the disruption of the rifle as the operating system feeds a new cartridge into the chamber and readies it for firing. So the gold standard is I want to be able to press the trigger, fire the shot, and have my crosshairs stay on the target through the entire cycle so I can spot my impact, get my trigger reset, and send the next shot right on the tail of it. So to do that in this rifle, we initially started out with the adjustable gas block. When we first built it, it had a full mass carrier system in it. It was a Fulton Armory full mass 308 bolt carrier group. Now, as a 6.5 Creedmoor, it uses a 308 bolt face, so you can use a 308 carrier. But as we found going along, and what most rifle builders have discovered is that using a standard 308 bolt in a 6.5 large frame AR causes some pressure issues. The higher pressure 6.5 cartridge tends to blow holes through large rifle primers when utilizing that 308 bolt face and that 308 sized firing pin hole. This is something that we found. We were able to get the gas system tuned down to the rifle ran reliably and tracked fairly flat, but we were punching holes through primers all the time, and it's a problem that will build upon itself. So once you punch those first couple of primers, you get some gas cutting on the tip of the firing pin, and it will sharpen that firing pin, and now you have more of a likelihood to punch primers going forward. And it becomes a reliability issue, it becomes a safety issue, because you're not containing that gas in the cartridge anymore. So I knew I needed to go to a smaller faced or a smaller firing pin hole and a higher pressure bolt. The easy answer was the JP enhanced bolt. First of all, this is going to sound like a commercial for JP. It is not. The products that I'm going to use in here that I'm going to talk about, the low mass carrier group that I have here, I purchased with my own money. The silent captured spring that we'll talk about here in a minute, JP did give this to me to try out. We were running one of their polished center springs previously, but I wanted to give this guy a go, and they asked us to try it out. So with that out of the way, I knew I wanted to use a high pressure bolt from JP, and I figured while I was doing this, might as well avoid any other issues and go with the JP bolt carrier. It also is just a much higher quality finished part. It has this nice polished stainless It's very silky smooth in the hand. It feels like it has oil on it even when it's totally dry. It's a really nice overall part. So I went ahead and purchased the whole system and figured if I'm going with the carrier, why not go with the low mass carrier and try to eliminate some of that mass that we have slapping around in the gun. The primary reason for that is when you fire a large frame AR especially, it applies to a small frame AR, but especially with the large frame ARs. When you pull the trigger and you have the initial report of the rifle, you have the initial recoil that is that equal and opposite reaction of the bullet and the gases exiting the muzzle. So you get that first punch. Now the bolt carrier group unlocks, travels to its most rearward portion, and has to come to a stop. So you get a secondary mass or secondary impact as that bolt hits the end of its stop. Now, if you've tuned it well, then the recoil spring is slowing the bolt as it's coming back. So ideally, you just want it to touch down at the end of its travel. You don't want it to slam into the back of the rifle. Most factory rifles are overgassed with a heavy mass carrier, so you do get kind of a pop at that back end. Now everything has to reverse direction and come forward to feed a cartridge out of the magazine and drive it into the chamber. So when that comes to a stop, again, ideally you've used up all that energy, but practically that's not what happens. So the bolt slams shut, you get a little bit of a forward jump on that. So you get recoil, impact, feeding, and impact. We need to minimize that to allow the system to work as efficiently as possible. We only want enough mass to resist that gas coming back. We only want enough mass going forward to strip that cartridge and chamber it reliably. So in a competition gun, a low mass carrier is a great option because then you can utilize the gas system to tune how much power you're getting back to push that back, and you can tune the recoil spring for how much is throwing it forward. So the low mass carrier really assists on that. Now, when we talk about springs in the back, we have the silent captured spring assembly here, and this replaces your standard operating spring and your buffer. It is a one-piece unit, and it is adjustable. You can disassemble this. You can replace the springs on here to tune them in for what weight you want, and you can replace the weights on here. There are tungsten weights and there are aluminum weights that you can swap in to get the weight that you want. And you notice they do move a little bit on here, and that is intentional. Much like you take your buffer and you shake your buffer and you can hear things moving around in here, the weights moving a little bit give you a little bit of a slide hammer or a dead blow hammer type effect to help just get you that last little tap to seat your cartridge and lock the bolt. So the silent captured assembly, aside eliminating the spring that you get with the AR type platform, it really gives you a good deal of tuning that you can do along with a lightweight carrier to get things dialed in. Now, you can run these guys in a duty rifle as well. The fact that we are running a lightweight system here does not preclude running it in a duty-oriented rifle. The trick there is you just need to go a little bit more on the reliable side versus on the performance side. And I'll give you an example of that. When we tune the gas system on a competition rifle like this, we will tune the gas system so that the carrier, when it moves to its rearward position, moves just far enough to allow the bolt catch pushed up by the magazine to catch the carrier and stop it. That is the rearmost travel that we want. We don't need it slamming in to the back of the buffer extension or to the limit of the silent captured spring with energy still left on it. So we will close the gas system down, test with a 1 round in a magazine, load it, fire it, see if it locks back. If it does not lock back, then go through the cycle again and add a little bit more gas, add a little bit more gas, add a little bit more until it locks back on that empty magazine. Now, once it locks back on that empty magazine, I will usually just give it a click or two more gas. That way, when the rifle gets dirty, when it gets fouled at the end of a couple of day match, I still have enough gas to lock back on an empty magazine. But you don't really want any more than that. And you need to do it with the empty magazine because you can get to a point on the carrier travel and the gas adjustment where you are still feeding cartridges, but you are not going back far enough to lock on an empty magazine. So the gas system allows you to tune that in, but the gas system can't take mass out of the carrier. So going with a lighter weight system, I feel, gives you a greater bit of versatility on that. So with a duty system, when you adjust the gas system, you're going to want to give it a little bit more than just locking back on an empty magazine. That way you have that constant reliability, and you're going to need, if you first build up a rifle for duty use, you're going to need to run it filthy to make sure that it functions reliably when it's filthy, well past what anyone would actually run it in the field. Unfortunately, that takes a little bit of ammunition to do. That takes quite a few training days, and it means the rifle can't go into service until you get that figured out. But now you know why factory rifles tend to be overgassed, because they don't have to go through all that fiddling. They just crank it up beyond what they expect and let it go out the door. So you don't necessarily have to go with a full mass system to gain reliability in a duty system. You can go with a lightweight system, but you're going to want to make sure that you know what you're doing and you take the time to tune it in so that it is 100% reliable. Now, one place where a full mass system really can benefit you is on a suppressed rifle. When you're running a suppressed rifle, you have a whole lot more pressure building up in the system, and you are changing that pressure curve. The heavier mass carriers help keep the system locked up longer to allow that pressure curve to drop down, so that when it comes time to unlock and extract the case from the chamber, the pressure's dropped off, the case has shrunk down in the chamber and released the chamber walls, so now you can easily eject it. What you will see when you are running too light a carrier and too much gas is very often you will start ripping the rims off of cartridges, because the system is still trying to extract the cartridge while the pressure is too high and the cartridge is not released. So a heavier weight buffer system and a heavier weight carrier can help resist that unlocking and give it more time for the pressure to drop. It also helps keep the system corked up a little bit longer so that gas can exit the suppressor forward, because one of the key purposes of a suppressor is to slow those gases from exiting the muzzle. So it'll keep it locked up a little bit longer. It will be less gas back in the system. And again, you will need an adjustable gas block to be able to tune that. Now, if you do not have an adjustable gas block, then a heavier weight carrier or a full mass carrier can help increase your reliability there, because when you start running hotter ammo, then it will still keep that system locked up for longer. So again, we run into this balancing act. Now, JP has released a really cool setup called a variable mass carrier, and it takes the idea from the silent captured springs and translates it over to the tail of the bolt carrier group. So if you picture this setup just like that, that's basically what you have. So the carrier body is tapered down, and the weights that you use for the silent captured spring assembly will fit on the bolt carrier group. And there are a couple of different flavors of it, from the aluminum bodied, which is the lightest end, up through the standard, and then you have a heavyweight option as well. So you can really get your bolt carrier group dialed in, and that combined with a silent capture spring gives you a very wide variety of operating system weights that you can run. And then of course you can change the springs out as well. So you have a ton of options as far as how you can get it dialed in. Now, one definite concern with the aluminum carrier. The aluminum carrier is really designed for race guns. It was described to me as the Formula One of bolt carrier groups. It is not a long-term durability type system, so it is considered a wear part. It is something that at a certain point you are probably going to have to replace because the sliding friction surfaces will begin to wear down on it, and you may run into reliability problems. You may start to get some slop on the carrier in the receiver, whereas with a stainless carrier like this one here, it's going to outlive your upper receiver. So keep that in mind when you're selecting the components, the correct components for the correct job. But I would not have any concerns with running one of those in a duty-oriented rifle, again, as long as you have done your homework and you tune it well. And I really like the ability to get things dialed in and adjusted just the way I want them for the load that I'm running. So there are a ton of great options out there. Of course, unfortunately, they do not come without cost. The JP components are on the higher end of the cost spectrum, but I think the fit and finish is still a good value for what you are spending. Now, again, I do want to thank JP for sending out the silent captured spring assembly for use in the 6.5 Mattson. I really enjoy the fact that we don't have the spring, we don't have that sound of things moving around underneath my cheek, and the ability in the future to be able to adjust this however I want to adjust it. That is a really, really nice feature. Also, again, I did purchase the low mass carrier and bolt to go in the rifle, so that we got on our own. I do look forward in the future to giving the lightweight variable mass system a try, because I'd really like to see with that and a couple of extra weights what kind of tuning we can do to take this rifle to the next level. So hopefully we will be able to get JP to send us out one of those. Well, David, I hope that answers your question, and that question did come off of Patreon, so if you guys want to learn how to help support the content that you know and love, please check us out over on Patreon. We would love to have you. If you like the video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you want to be notified when we release new content, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the little bell next to it to be notified. We try to release new content every week. If you've got a question you'd like to have answered on the show, you can drop it in the comments section below or send it to us at Facebook or Twitter. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app, you can send questions to us at 8541tactical@gmail.com. And until next time, get out and shoot. It is a one-piece unit.